folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you. We are back with episode 159 with my co-host and partner here on has been for 159 episodes, Mr. David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Welcome to the show.
Greetings. And we missed y'all last week. But both of us were sort of snowed in. As many of you know,
hard.
I live, 30 miles from the Florida border, and we had 6 inches of snow. You couldn't go anywhere. It looked beautiful, but I mean, you couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't find my wood pile because it was covered under snow. It was amazing, and it was cold. But me and Doug, we hunkered down, added another blanket to the bed, and I hibernated through most of it. But boy, howdy, 6 inches of snow. It was definitely a record. So for those of you climate folks that think that the earth is warming, anyway, I love you all and thank you for showing up. And we've got a really nice story for you tonight. How Glooskap made the birds kind of thing. So back to you, Robert.
I got a question. You didn't lose power or nothing like that, did you?
No, thank goodness. Everything, everybody, and the other thing is, not that it didn't happen, but I haven't heard of anybody's house burning down. Because usually when we have a really cold snap like this, somebody's, they're breaking up the beds and stuff to burn them in the fireplace. But thank goodness, I haven't heard, but I haven't, normally if you hear of a house burning down, somebody's saying something, So I haven't heard, and at least locally, that any houses burned down. So that is like a plus. But it got to a high of 38 the other day, which for South Georgia, and our lows were, it got down to 19 one night. It got down to 19. So, And as I was telling Robert, there was still snow on the ground yesterday in the shady places here on the farm. And, and it was almost, so there was snow on the ground for 6 days.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I think that'll green everything up. I see Christmas says CO2 plant food, and it is. I know, like here in the spring, if the grass is growing and it starts to turn green and it starts snowing, boy, that's that nitrogen that gets in there or something. And boy, everything is really green for a bit after that.
Really?
So, yeah, it really is. So there you go. Scotty Boy says, damn high of 38, too cold for my blood. Well, welcome to the crowd. While you guys were experiencing a little bit of snow, we were experiencing a little bit of 40 below. It was so cold. I tell you, it was so cold.
How cold was it?
It was so cold that, and the wind was blowing so hard that the pipes in my basement froze, and I didn't have any water in the morning. And it was so cold that I had the furnace turned up to 80, and yet I still could see my breath in my bedroom. When I went like that, I could see it. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's pretty cold. So there you go.
My friends down here came to visit me on Sunday, and Miss Mandy said, I got messages from some of my friends, and they were like, oh, this and that, and complaining, and I've got my heater turned up to 80 and it's only 60 in my house. Oh, my heater must be out. She goes, no, it's cold outside. It's 19 degrees, and you might have your heater on 80, but it ain't used to this. So it was like, put on another sweater. It's not going to get any warmer than it already is in your house. Quit complaining. But anyway.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
I got two space heaters.
I'm sitting in front of one right now. One thing that I think was really good that we needed out of this snowstorm. Hey, Steve, how are you? Is that a lot of these Gen Zer folks have never experienced anything like that down here. And they've never experienced how cold it gets. They've never experienced snow. They've never, they have not had the experience. Now, there's a lot of these Southerners that have just never had the opportunity to go north, and we've never had enough snow. The last time it snowed was like a half an inch, So this 6 inches, and Pensacola got 9 inches of snow. But when you look at the Tallahassee record, it was just over an inch and a half. Well, but you drove 10 miles north of Tallahassee and there was 5-6 inches of snow, and Interstate 10 was closed, so, but it was an experience for people who I don't think would have ever had that experience, meaning snow-covered roads, frozen pipes. I mean, it's been a long time since we've had this kind of cold weather. And people say, oh, it's never been this cold. Yes, it has. So that, that's a falsity, but it's been 20 years since it's been this cold. Yeah. So there is a whole generation of folks who have never experienced, really cold weather and snow and ice, Yeah. So I think it was really good for that experience right there. Some of these little children built snowmen for the first time. There were adults who had never built a snowman, who built, we were having a snowball fight Sunday with the snow left over in the shade, packing it together and having a snowball fight. And I mean, that was 5 days after it snowed. So, but the fact that people got a chance to experience that, I'm very thankful. Was it cold as hell? Did I feel like I was going to freeze to death? Yeah. Did me and Duggar make it? Yeah. So everything's groovy, but it was dang sure an experience.
Yes, it was.
Y'all up north go through it all the time, and I've lived up north, and I've been up north, but to be down here, to have that kind of snowfall. And I mean, it was all over the place. It wasn't just like in one or two little places. No. The whole South was snowed under. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, it's quite the experience. I mean, for us, it's like it's a normal activity, but for you down there, it's like a once in a lifetime kind of deal. Lasts for a little bit. You get to have some fun. They have shut all the streets and the roads, and everybody stays home, I suppose. And nobody knows how to drive in the snow, or there's no snow plows anyway. And to plow the snow,
they were using front end loaders, and they were using they've got these tractors with the big brush on the front of them for blowing dust and stuff up, cleaning the streets, and they were using those. Which is like, that's pretty ingenious in that. Hey, Witch Moon. But one of the other things too is like, and you should look online, some of these rednecks, I love it. They don't have sleds. So they were using kayaks. They were using all kinds of stuff for sleds, and the Cajuns, they didn't have snowmobiles. So they cranked up, get this, oh, goodness gracious. I can't think of the name right now. The airboats.
Oh, that's an idea.
They cranked up their airboats and had airboat races over the ice and snow. I mean, only a Cajun redneck, would think of something like that. But so it gave folks the opportunity to use a little bit of redneck ingenuity. I was like, they did what? Oh, cool. I wish I could have been there to have ridden in one of those airboats across the snow. I mean, to heck with a snowmobile. I bet you them things just slide sideways. They were doing donuts, man. And folks in their cars, because the ice was so prevalent. I mean, we had a 1/4 inch of ice that stayed there for like 2 days. So, which is amazing. But people were doing donuts in the parking lots. And I mean, sliding sideways, big rigs. I mean, y'all know this stuff. But folks down here were going, oh my God. So it was cool. It was great. And as far as I know, not too many people got injured.
Cool. Good. Well, just like anything else, a good thing like that comes to an end. Hopefully you don't get more of that this year. Jeez. Right?
I will be more prepared if it does.
Yeah, bring in some more armfuls of wood ahead of time.
Yeah, but it didn't. That armful of wood did not last long. And then by the time I could get back outside, it was covered. But one of the things, though, is that for me, they were like, "Oh, we're going to get 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches of snow," and I was like, "Yeah, bullshit." No, and they were like, "Folks were like, why?" Because the last time they said that, many moons ago, 15 years ago or so, it only snowed an inch. So I'm sitting here at the house, 4 inches of snow. 4 inches of snow. I woke up in the morning to 6 inches of snow. They lied.
Yeah.
So it was like, I will take more precautions. Now I had everything I needed here at the house. I had went to the store the day before and I had dog food and stuff and everything. So I was well supplied. And some of my neighbors were sort of well supplied, but others were just like really got caught off guard. But they learned that, you can get snowed in and this is what it looks like. Well, I've heard of people get snowed in before. Yeah, but I can't get up my driveway because there's this much snow in it. I'm sorry. And people were kind of sort of freaking out. But at the same time, we've had practice with hurricanes where our lights have gone out and trees are down and we can't get around, So I think people just, especially the older people, just went, well, it's sort of a holiday. And the young kids went, snow. And so we made it through what could have otherwise been, just a really freaky incident for everybody, freaking out and doing no, but most folks actually acted with a little bit of common sense. Yay, team.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Well, enough about snow. We're over it. I'm ready for the warm weather. We had a nice day today, and whatever snow we had pretty much all melted. Now it's just ice out there. So Lucky says he's ready for a blizzard. So am I, but no blizzard today. Maybe next week. It's supposed to be nice for the next 2-3 days, and by Sunday, the temperature is going to go from 25 to 10, or maybe even below 0. So there you go. Going to be another week of cold weather. So get ready.
So y'all stay warm out there.
Yes, exactly. So tonight again, we're going to be reviewing this book, by Herman Lehman. Remember, he was captured by the Indians as a young boy, about 10 or 12, and he spent 9 years among the Indians from 1870 to 1879. It was the downfall of the Indians, as in the wars there. Pretty much, he got to experience the tail end of it. And here he is, all grown up and old, remained kind of an Indian kind of guy, for many years after. But he did manage to write a book, which is great. Told his Indian tale. Here he is. He was captured in 1870 from his family. German. Was at age 10. Him and his brother Willie, and Willie was released, but he stayed with them. Became an Apache for many years, eventually a Comanche, and then he was returned to his family by the soldiers in 1878. But he maintained his ties to Quanah Parker, Comanche family, which he'd been adopted to. So that's where the story lies. And tonight we're going to be talking about the fights they had and the ordeals they went through, and almost the end of his life as an Indian and what happened to him. And so we start out with the fight with the Rangers. And they had a fight with the Rangers. And of course, this was told by Captain Dan Roberts. He was a Texas Ranger. Now, remember, the Indians were really afraid of the Rangers. And if we take a look, we can find Captain Daniel Webster Roberts. He lived from 1841 to 1935, believe it or not. Became a really old man. Can you imagine saying, growing up back then and then becoming a Texas Ranger and living all 1935? You went all the way through, riding horses to railroad trains and world wars and Civil War. I mean, he survived all of that. How remarkable. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, they went from riding horses to riding motorcycles,
Yep.
to chase. They went from riding horses to Model A's and Model T's, but absolutely, they went from the telegraph to the telephone, so they went from barely able to, back then to take a picture, had to hold still for 2 minutes. Then by that time, they had moving pictures. So,
Exactly.
Talk about the craziness that went on in his lifetime, and the changes that came about. Look at what we're going through right now. But, to go from, folks these days, what? There were no moving pictures? What? I couldn't take a picture with my cell phone? You couldn't take a picture, let alone with a cell phone. And then by the time, the silent movies came out, and then they came out with the talkies. So, the amount of innovation that happened in his lifetime is like remarkable.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, you look at this picture and here's the Rangers set up around their tent, a bunch of band of guys, and they're just kind of ragtag looking men. You think, oh, these are Texas Rangers. They're just men with big guns, hanging on their hips, and guns and knives and tough as nails. I mean, they had to be. They were chasing the Indians.
And a lot
the Indians were more. The Indians were more afraid of the Rangers, as he's saying in here, than the Army. The Army, the military was just not, that was not a challenge to them, and they could lead the Army off in the different directions and whatever. Well, anyway, here's their thing from the Rangers, and some of the Rangers were. He says, it says here when he was writing this in 1927, he says the Captain Roberts is still living in Austin, Texas, and in spite of his orders of our chief. When the fight started, our men scattered, and only 4 or 5 of us remained to fight the trained Rangers. Some of the Rangers' force followed a retreating Indian whose horse's leg was broken by a shot, and he jumped up behind the Mashkish of a Lippin, who was with our party, and they ran away. The fleeing Indians carried our rim-fired Winchesters, and of course he was cut off and left alone. And several bullets had hit my shield and knocks against my forehead. And of course, eventually they killed his horse, and him and his friend jumped off. They killed his friend, and they come up to him and they said, they found a little Mexican boy, and they kept going. They killed a bunch of the Indians. He said he was never so scared. He was left out in the cold there by himself, and he had to go find his tribe. They searched for him, but they couldn't find him. He followed a trail, and he came to where some Indians had killed an antelope, and the wolves had eaten the flesh, and he found a little bit, and he could suck the bones. He was sucking the marrow out of the bones so he wouldn't starve to death. He gnawed on the hide. I mean, talk about tough people. Today, people would look at that and go, I'm not eating that. I'd rather starve to death.
And they did.
But he's taking bones. Yeah, bones that he says, I was nearly starved for water, so I ate dirt with mud in it. And a hole had formed by the recent rain. I became delirious to my senses, and and then eventually, there was a spring, and he was at a spring, and he drank a lot of water. But I was also starved so long that the water would not stay in my stomach. So basically, when you're starving, you try to drink water, it won't go down. And he lay there in the water. My tongue was parched. The water, I still could not but drink a little bit. I laid there all day and night. I was too weak and sore and faint to feel much pain. He says, my sensibilities were dulled. Oh my gosh, he's starving to death. He was homesick, sick, even for the Indians. So he caught some frogs and he ate them raw. Ugh, I mean, how many of you out there would eat raw frogs? Just catch a frog and just eat it. I mean, most of us would probably just starve. And he considered them dainty morsels. Oh my gosh. But he had nothing to carry the water. He went on till he finally reached the village, and he got there, and my toenails came off, and I was sick for a long time. Well, he must have drank some bad water or something that his toenails came off.
Scurvy.
Yuck. But something. Says the Indians that ran into the Rangers. The Rangers came up and reached the village some days before I arrived, and they had told that they were all killed, and that they had killed our horses and buried all over the property with us. So basically, Rangers saying, we killed all those bad Indians. When I was told how my 3 companions and myself had broken forsaken for the chief's anger grew no bounds. So, he's pissing the chief off. He made the chief all over those who had deserted me because, they all ran. Everybody scattered. It's the Rangers. They were running. So the chief's mad. He just left everybody. But for him, he says, I told the tribe, he kind of lied a little bit. He says, I told the tribe that I followed the Rangers and buried one of the Indians with his face downward and covered his last resting place with a rock so that the wolves and other beasts could not get him. Wow. They had shot that Indian and they butchered him terribly. There was no face on him which to turn. I can see the bloody form in my mind when I close my eyes. So basically, he's lying because the Rangers had chopped the Indian up so badly, and it was gruesome. So the Indians didn't that's the thing I learned, that these Indians were doing the same thing as the white man. The white man was doing, the white man would go and scalp the Indians. The Indians would scalp the white man. It was a free for all, I swear. Anyway, he goes on. He talks about the Rangers some more, and how the Ranger wrote this book and he didn't realize it was him. They captured another German boy, and they thought it was him, but it was somebody else. But he was still going on. Anyway, and then there was another fight. There's a lot of fights in here, people, and some of them are kind of gruesome. This one was on the Concho Plains in 1875, which would make him about 15, I'd say, by this time. Another fight with the Captain Rogers of the Rangers. And of course he wrote this was another guy, Captain J.B. Gillett, Captain J.B. Gillett, and he wrote a book. And his book was 6 years. Yes, or Gillett, Gillet, Captain James B. Gillett. Okay, so anyway, he wrote a book, 6 years with the Texas Rangers. And there he is. I think
that might be Gillette.
Gillette? Okay, Gillette.
Like
I thought Gillette would be.
Like, the razor blades.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Okay. We'll go with Gillette. I like it. Ex-Sergeant of Company A, Frontier Battalion. So if you're interested in this book, go out and get his book and read 6 years with the Texas Rangers, and you can hear Stories of the Texas Rangers. There's tales told in the dark. Hello, I haven't seen you before. Thank you for coming. And there is a Joanne dancing gypsy. You guys are talking to me. Somebody's sick. Oh, savagely. Yes, he says they chopped off his face. That they did. Yep. So anyway, hope you're all feeling good. If this is time sickness is going around, I've heard a lot of stories about some really bad sicknesses. So, hope you take care of yourselves. That's the thing. Anyway, he's talking about in August. Now, this is in August. The Rangers are coming after him. Our horses were in bad condition for a long pursuit, and there was no alternative, and we began the chase without delay. The trail led across the head of the dry and rocky creeks in the northern part of Menard County in the direction of the Kickapoo Springs, crossing the Fort McCavitt and Fort Concho roads about 9 miles south of Kickapoo Springs. I have no idea where that is, but I imagine it's in the northwestern part of Texas. They rode nearly all night when we reached the road, and our horses became very much jaded and suffered for water. Of course, these guys rode horses pretty much to death. I tell you, there's more stories in this book about horses dying, breaking their necks, their legs, getting shot out from under them, eating them, as we will find in this story. Many of our horses had flung their shoes, were lame in consequence, because remember, they're stealing white man's horses, and the Indians don't use horseshoes. They didn't have horseshoes or tools to put them on. So, when a horse throws a shoe, he's lopsided and he usually limps. So the Indians would usually take him off. Many of our horses had flung their shoes, and they went to a ranch the next morning and reshot the ranch, reshot our stock, and after we resumed the pursuit some 12 or 15 miles above the head of South Concho, this is talking about the Rangers, we again came upon the trail and followed it to the top of a mountain where the Indians had halted and had removed the shoes from their stolen horses. So why they should want to pull off the shoes from their stock has always been a mystery. Well, yeah, you can't have lopsided horses. If you lose a shoe, the horse is going to know it. Okay, several theories have been advanced by the Rangers and frontiersmen. None hold good. These horseshoes were left where they had been pulled off. And, of course, the Indians just pull them off and flung them, In addition, the Indians had timed 2 long strips from a blanket and placed these strips in the form of a cross on the ground. And in this condition, we found them. I don't know why. It was around 2 p.m. This is from the Ranger's book, or what he's describing. And when we discovered the sign on the mountain, the weather was dreadfully hot, but we took up the trail and pushed as fast as our jaded horses could carry us. We knew that from signs that's so familiar. Anyway, we followed the trail, and it led southwest course until we came out on the plains, after which the trail went due west. About half hour in the sun, we came to a pond where the Indians had watered their stock. Now listen how good these trackers are. The water in the horses' tracks was yet muddy, and the grass along the margin where the horses had come out of the water was still wet. Can you imagine coming up and knowing this? You know what I mean? This is interesting, because this is how it is. How down there on the ground they go, look, me see 'em, 14 horses. Me see 'em, tracks, 15 minutes old. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but here's the thing.
So anyway,
that was the only thing that, tracking, everybody had to learn how to track back in them days. You had to know what was going on. But there were some folks who had taken tracking to a science. They were, those were the folks who took observance to the next level. The awareness of their surroundings. they could look at a hoof print, but they also looked at the weeds nearby. They looked at how the dust was taken. So by the time he gets off his horse, he's already, or she has already surveyed what's going on, and they've got a bigger picture, and then they start narrowing it down. So, but anyway, yes, they were dang good back in them days.
Well, yeah. I mean, to see the anyway, the Rangers decided to stop there, water their horses too, because they were really close to the Indians. And they said, well, let's cook some dinner. We'll remount. We'll get going. And then we laid there until dawn. Our horses finally had a good rest, and they needed it. Well, and when the light was out, we saddled. We gave them a minute. We saw we were almost in sight of the enemy. We rode a moderately brisk gait until 7 o'clock. Now, that's in the morning. And Captain Rogers suddenly halted and said, "Boys, I believe I see them." Well, they were far ahead. They were just specks on the horizon. Anyway, they were riding slowly, and they had not discovered us yet. He says, we rode single file, line, the sun at our backs, and following my direction, we could get close on them before they could see us. We were all keen for a fight, and our captain's orders were obeyed to the letter. We rode in a manner indicated, and we were within 600 yards of the Indians before they discovered us. Then there were 11 of them, and to this number we were about equally matched. Besides the 11, there were 2 riding along at a considerable distance to the left, and these 2 were the first to see us and gave us alarm. We broke rank and raised the yell, "Every man for himself," making full tilt of the savages. The Indians began rounding up the herd, and remember that Indians usually have a herd of horses with them because that's what they were stealing. And we got near enough to do execution. They scattered and they sought safety in the tall running. However, when we got about 150 yards from them, they railed on a small elevation and opened fire on us. So they got on a little mound or something, the high ground. It was, and you got, back in those days, there's nothing to hide behind. You just got grass. You're out in a field, just hoping that guy couldn't shoot well. It says, this was evident for the purpose of giving some of their number time to catch and mount fresh horses. We killed 3 or 4 of the horses and probably killed or wounded an Indian or 2. The crowd broke and ran. We carried our Winchesters and needle guns, and every man in the company was a crack shot. See, that was another thing. The Rangers were deadly shots, and I don't know what a needle gun is. I imagine it's a 6-shooter. What do you think?
I don't know. I've not heard that term before.
Yeah, he says Winchesters and needle guns. Don't know what a needle gun is. Anybody else in chat knows? Let me know. Send me a message. This was crazy. I mean, I can't believe. These men were brave. You're basically out there in the open with Indians on mound, high ground, and shooting at you, and you're just hiding in the grass. Anyway, the Indians scattered in pairs when our men killed a horse, and the rider would hop up behind his comrade and continue the fight. So they're basically piling on horses, 2 men to a horse. This Ed Sicker and Jim Gillette took after the rider, 2 well-mounted Indians who, with their shields on their backs, were burning the wind. After a run of 500 or 600 yards, they brought down one of the horses, and then a quick flash, the Indian was up behind his mate, and the race continued until the horse ran by. The 2 Indians began to lose his wind. Yeah, because now you got 2 Indians on a horse. Well, we know who this guy was, and this was our man, Herman. One of them anyway. Began to maneuver 2 Indians during the run, but on account of their shields had failed to bring them down. Remember, those shields were stretched buffalo hide, and with the hard side out, and they would literally repel bullets. They were so tough. The Indians weren't stupid. It says here, Jim Gillette, dismounting with his needle gun, took deliberate aim and broke the horse's neck, and then sprang back into the saddle and dashed forward along with Ed. Then, when the horse fell, the Indian mounted on behind the ground and running and still holding the shield over his back, while the horse, in its fall, had pinned the other Indian to the ground. The boys dashed up to the fallen horse, and Gillette threw his pistol on the Indian lying pinned under the horse and was in the act of shooting him when Ed shouted, "Don't shoot him!" Now, this is our man Herman. Don't you see he's a white boy? I mean, even after all this time of being with the Indians, now he's what, 15 by this time, he still can be recognized as a white man. You'd think by now his skin would be tanned to the brisk, his hair would be long, but you can't deceive. He probably had pretty blue eyes or something. So, he's a white boy. So the guy Gillette lowered his pistol and shouted that the boy was closely held by the body of the horse, and because remember, though, he shot the horse fell on top of him, and he couldn't even get his foot loose, so he could not escape. They hurried on after the fleeing Indians, whom they overtook and killed after a race of about 300 yards. After having killed this Indian, they tarried a short while to get his scalp and gather up his bow and quiver, shield, and other countenance, and anything worth carrying away as trophies. And they returned to where they had left the boy under the dead horse. He was gone. This they were puzzled. And the scene of the fight, the chase was open. There was nothing to obstruct the view for miles. Remember, they're in the grasslands. There's nothing. And from the moment the horse was killed until after their return to the spot, they had a full view of the surrounding. The boy could not have gotten away without having seen him or anything. Anyway, they searched. The grass was green, and it was only 7 to 8 inches high. And into this he must have crawled off and secreted himself. The search began, and for a short time, the entire company came up and joined in the hunt. Every square rod for a mile around was gone over, and every brush and tuft of the grass was examined, but the boy was nowhere to be found, and we gave up the search as hopeless and went away completely mystified as where he had become of him. So imagine how hard that would have been to, hide in 7 or 8 inch grasses like this. I mean, I live out on the plains like that. I can't imagine you trying to hide in the grass. There's no trees. You're looking, you can see everything in sight. You know what I mean? You got to lay there really still and really quiet.
Yep, you have to become the earth.
Yes. Let's see. Scotty Boy says, it says a needle as a firing pin. Elderberry's in the house, and he says bolt action rimfire rifle. There you go. Oh, okay. Here's a good one. Maybe I clicked that one too fast. He says here, maybe the firing pin was used on newer rifles that the Indians didn't have. And Chris Smith,
those would have been the center fire, meaning that the bullets had a primer in them. Where the other ones,
he says here,
like a rim fire, like the old 22s.
It could be. Chris Smith's got the answer. He looked it up. A needle gun is a breech loading rifle. A breech loader. That's what it is. Breech loading gun. And he says, yes, Hawkeye, yes. Okay, good. We got our answer. Now we know what a needle gun is. Like I said, this is, okay, so after all of this is done, he learned later on, some years later, I learned that this boy was Herman Lehman. This is the guy writing the book here, this James Gillette. Anyway, he learned who the guy was, but after they got done in this fight, we captured, he says, 30 head of horses, which we drove to Mason County and delivered back to their owners. Oh, so anyway, yeah, some of the Indians got away, and some of them, they gathered up their lost horses and brought them back to the white man. This guy here, I think he ended. This is him back in the day. So if you were wandering around and you seen a Texas Ranger, this is what he would have been. This was Gillette, James Gillette. Okay, so anyway, we're gonna move on. Back to Herman Lehman, of course. Let's see if I got a picture for that. We are gonna go with this guy. We'll go back to this. And anyway, so now he's talking about a snowstorm. He was lost. He decided it's wintertime. Snow came down just as you were talking, how thick and heavy. And he says he was out trying to go hunting. My horse fell in a sinkhole and broke his neck. Like I said, I'm thinking, holy cow, these people killed more horses, broke more necks, broke more legs than any I've ever. I mean, horses broke their and died like that. Geez, I'm surprised we got any left. Yeah, I worked with him for some time, but he might get better. But he died. He fell in a sinkhole. Well, that happens when the snow gets really deep. You can't tell where things are, and there might be a hole there. Your horse will. I mean, it happens out here. There's holes out there, that the badgers dig or something, and you're going along, and all of a sudden there's a big hole, and you just step right in it. So I can see where that'd be a sinkhole. Well, his tracks were obliterated, and he didn't know where to go. And it was snowing all night, and he continued to walk in the dark for a long, long time. Now, remember, Indians didn't dress that heavy either. So at last, I gave up and laid down. That is probably the wrong thing to do. He's freezing cold, and he laid down. Now, what does that tell you? He was getting hypothermia or something. That's not the thing to do. Stay walking.
Yep.
He says, I remember. Yeah, you got to stay moving. Stay moving.
I've had hypothermia, and you got to stay moving. Yeah, and it hurts. You can't feel your limbs. You can't feel your feet, but you just got to keep imagining your legs moving or your arms moving. You got to keep moving.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Native Americans go through horses like a carpenter goes through nails. Anyway, he says he laid there suffering. I remember suffering so much with the cold that I lay there. It seemed to get warm, and I thought it was all a dream. More nice deer, buffalo, antelope, and other game appeared to me, and a good old squaw brought me some nice warm roast beef. Then all went out. He was hypothermia. He was dreaming. He was dying. Yeah, he was brought him some roast beef. The next thing I knew, I was in camp, wrapped up in a buff. And now listen to this. This is really interesting. So listen up, people. This is really smart. And this is how, he's frozen to death. Literally. Somebody must have found him. They wrapped him up in buffalo meat. I then began to thaw. My fingers, toes, ears, and nose were badly frozen. I was rubbed with meat until circulation started. Then I was placed on. Now, this is crazy. This is really crazy. I was placed on a bucking horse. Now, he's all thought out. I was placed on a bucking horse, and he would pitch me off. The Indians would catch the horse and replace me on his back. This was kept up until I caught several hard falls. Then they dipped me in cold water and thoroughly rubbed me, placed me between warm blankets, and gave me some nice fat meat. I was then allowed to sleep for a while, and when I was awakened, I was given a good meal, a roasted buffalo hump, and after that, how sweetly I did sleep. I soon recovered entirely. Now, what do you make of that? Why would they put him on a bucking horse and let him fall off several good times?
The only thing I can think of is to like spark the circulation, get your adrenaline up, get your, to really get your blood pumping. Because if you were, cold and sitting by the fire, your body is in a protection mode. But if you get put on the back of a bucking bronco, your heartbeat's going to increase. I don't care what So that could have been their thinking, but I could see where back in the day, how do we get this guy's heart pumping good to get his circulation up? They knew to rub him because they knew circulation was the deal. So how can we do that? Put him on the back of that horse. He'll wake up. Oh, okay.
That is a thought. I mean, hey, if I'm ever freezing to death, put me on a horse, let me get bucked off a few times. I'll get that adrenaline flowing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, he, it's starting to be warm. It's getting spring now. They were going to start making raids down to the settlements, but he was still weak, and he was left alone for 3 weeks. In a cedar break with another kid, and they drank, they ate honey and small game, and the kid with him had a badly sprained leg from a horse falling on him, and so they sat there and waited for the troop to return. After a while, they went down to the Santa Barbara River. They made some more raids into Mason County. I don't know where Mason County. I'm going to have to look that up. Next week I'll have a thing of Texas. But anyway, they went down there. They went down. We scalped a few guys. We met some guys guarding some horses. We took the horses and we killed the guys and we scalped them. Drove off their horses. Then we found a guy, man driving a wagon. We had a little fight with him, and then we scalped him. So if you get grossed out by all this killing stuff, people, this is just what they did. Oh my gosh. And we scalped him. We left him dying in condition. So he was still alive, and they scalped him. They took his team. And then for sport, the next sport we had was slaughtering a man who was driving an oxen team. We killed the oxen, sucked the paunch. I don't know what paunch is. In the lower intestines. I mean, maybe that's a stomach or something. The paunch. Paunch. In the lower intestine. These people knew where to get the good stuff to live, I guess. Yeah. Today, when you go shoot an animal, you gut them out and you throw the guts on the ground for the coyotes, and maybe we should be eating the guts and leaving the meat for the coyotes. They were doing it wrong. So they stripped the colon we stripped the colon and with our hands and tied one end and filled it with water to carry with us. We ate the hearts, the livers, fights, and the fights. I don't know what fights are. And the kidneys raw. What's the fights? Hang on a second. I gotta. So anyway, I don't know what the fights are, but they ate the kidneys raw while warm and sucked the blood like vampires. Made a fire and roasted the ribs and had a feast of those old oxen while our scouts kept watch that we were not found by the whites. And here comes the second. They're out there having fun in the courtyard, After they rested for several hours, they traveled more distance. They were doing stealing raids, going from place to place. We never feared Uncle Sam's. Listen to this. They never feared Uncle Sam's regular soldiers. We knew they had to consume a great deal of time in getting ready to take on our trail. But we dreaded the Texas Rangers and the frontiersmen whose guns were always loaded and whose aim was unerring. They slept in the saddle and ate while they rode or done without. They were just like the Indians. They took up our trail. They followed it determinedly and dogged us day and night. We stole horses here and there, started back to our headquarters. Oh, man. We found, let's see, one fine morning we found a whole country full of soldiers, and we had a desperate fight with them. Several of our men were killed. We escaped and hurried northward and met some Kiowas and Comanches. Ooh-wee, you know. So they kept going. Anyway, greater numbers they were with then. They had more firearms, and they met up with Quanah Parker of the Comanches and came out and persuaded us to come into the reservation at Fort Sill. Our men were rounded up and counted like cattle. Men came from all over Texas to examine and claim our horses. Remember, they've stolen all these horses. So now they're on the reservation. And they took our horses, they took our stuff. Anyway, our white children were taken and he was hidden. Carnivus, his chief, said that they had not lost any squaw. He did not propose to give up, but he didn't propose to give me up. I did not want to go, for I learned to hate my own people. So I kept hid. The Indians reported at headquarters that there was an Apache chief, Carnivus, and had a white man, a white boy. So the soldiers went out there to see if he was, telling the truth. He didn't have one or he had one. So they started looking, and so they made him. They came to the tent. Now this is unbelievable. They laid him down on the ground. They threw a bunch of blankets down on him, and then they sat on him. And when the soldiers came, they passed the peace pipe around while they made small talk while sitting on him. He was crushed to the ground. My nose and mouth were in the sand and was smashed as flat as a horned frog, nearly smothered by the Indians. But they would have killed me before they would have given me up. So anyway, after all of that, they weren't happy. And the reservation was treating them badly. Now, I've read a bunch of stuff about the reservations and about this incident, and it wasn't good. The reservations were putting the Indians with other Indians that weren't their Indians, and the Indians were just not doing good things. Put it that way. Their men collected the women and the children. They came together. We stole all of the horses and blankets, guns that we could find, and under the cover of night, we escaped. The next morning, we were many miles from the fort and the detested whites. We made for the plains as fast as we could travel, and as soon as we were in our own haunts, we needed horses, so we raided and with another band, and we raided some settlements. We countered 2 boys down by a river, and we killed them and scalped them. Jeez. I'm like, oh my gosh. They went to Fredericksburg, but they avoided killing anybody in order not to, alert the Rangers. They went down to Pack Saddle Mountain region on the Sandy Creek. They saw a man chopping wood. Guess what? He had a sorrel pony. And they raced to get him, but he jumped on the pony and tried to get away. We crowded him closely, and when he quit his horse, which means he jumped off his horse, he dropped his axe and he lost his hat, and we made his way onto him. He went into the thicket. He soon left the thicket, and we ran to the house. We saw him enter. We didn't often fool around the house. It says, see, a house was like a fort, and so they kind of avoided the houses. We took his horse, though, he says, and then we found he had 20 head of horses. We drove them away and took them. At least he had his life and his scalp left. But then it began to rain, and our bowstrings were wet, and we decided to, they had to dry their bowstrings out. And they got in a thicket, started a fire. And of course, you might as well wave the big red flag. It says, hey, we're over here. And and some white men came along, and we fought them off. This is like crazy times. I'm reading this. It's like, oh, we fought these guys off, and we all scattered. Then we were followed by the Rangers again, and they overtook us, and we had a hard fight. And we lost some of our horses, were captured, and rangers, and one Indian was killed, and several were wounded, but we escaped. What an adventure. Good old days, right? We went on to where our people were in camp. Amazing the rangers didn't go to the camp and say, "Where are you?" and kill you all, you know. But when they got to the camp where our people would be, guess what they did? They were gone. And to let them know where they were, this is how clever they were. We reached there and we found that they had moved. We found buffalo bones and on them pictures representing a fight with the whites. On some bones, properly arranged, were the pictures of 7 men pierced with arrows, also a wagon burning up. The bones pointed northward. 12 bones, particularly arranged, represented 12 days' journey. We traveled on for 12 consecutive days. Then we could see smoke a long ways apart and all in rows pointing westward. This we took to mean that the rangers were too thick and had made it so hot for the Indians that they moved westward, indicating they were so closely pursued, and warned us watch as and listen, keep watch. Anyway, I'm like, isn't that ingenious though? Painting pictures on the bones that you're leaving on the ground. I mean, a normal person would have came by and just seen the bones and walked right over the top of them, probably not thinking of how they were arranged, looking at the bones to see if they've drawn anything. Isn't that old saying where if it's right out in the open, you just won't see it at all? Yeah. What do you make of that?
A lot of times, yeah. I had heard of, because in the Boy Scouts, we learned how to mark a trail. So if somebody was coming in behind us, you'd bend a limb over, you took a stick and put it in the fork of another one and pointed it a direction. You could leave certain stones in a certain way, it was 3 o'clock when you got there, or whatever it was. And so I did know about, leaving markers, but not painted markers. That's a new one. But hidden in plain sight, absolutely, Lucky. The fact that they had time to put pictures on them, and what did they use to paint with? What was their ink? I mean, I would be curious about that, but Yep.
Well,
And how did the guys know what the code was? Had they? Yeah. They sit around at night and go, now if you put these bones like this, and where'd they get the sparrow bones or whatever it was? I mean, so not that I disbelieve it. It's just that I could see where they sat around and said, well, before we go, I think we ought to use these bones. We're going to point them north because that's where we're going, and we're going to use these other bones. Well, how many should we? I don't know, But then how did they know how to interpret it?
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's ingenious. I mean, they had their own little...
Absolutely ingenious. See, people just think they were dumb savages.
Yeah, they weren't. They were experts at leaving, whatever, So anyway, okay, so we're going to go on here. We went west for about 100 miles. Rangers, the white men pursuing our band proved to be... Now, this is the difference between the Rangers and the soldiers. The white men pursuing our band proved to be soldiers instead of Rangers, and the Indians decoyed them off the route where there was no water. We knew that what the consequences would be, so at the spring, we filled up our water bags and pursued the soldiers. Soon we began to find dead horses all on the way. Then we came upon a man nearly famished for water. He was stripped, scalped, and cut to pieces. We followed and found... I got to read this because I can't even describe it. We found 8 others, and they shared the same fate as the first mentioned. These soldiers passed close to the water, but it was in a deep hole, and the Indians kept it covered up. We saw from the direction the soldiers were traveling that they would all perish on the dry sand, so we went back on the right trail of our people. We found them at the spring, but it was deplorable condition, and then their horses were jaded and worn out, and many of the squaws and children were afoot. And so desolation, destruction, and other annihilation stared us in the face. Among the soldiers were some Negroes. Now listen to this. This is interesting. Negroes, the first most of the Indians had ever seen. The Indians thought these Negroes came from under the water. And the fact that our shadow always appeared black in the water. We called them buffalo soldiers because they had curly, kinky hair and heads like bison. Now, this is the part where they didn't understand things. Our arrows would not penetrate the skulls. I remember hearing our chief instruct his warriors one time that in fighting those buffalo soldiers, never to shoot them in the head because the skull was too hard, and it would turn the arrow mash the bullets, break spears and dull the lances, but to shoot him through the heart and kill him easily. Never let anything go to waste, right?
Hard-headed Negroes.
Yeah. I mean, talk about the way things go, Don't shoot him in the head. It's like a buffalo head. It'll just dull our arrows. It'll just bounce off.
I had heard different explanations of buffalo soldiers, but kinky hair and they look like the buffalo, that makes the most sense of all.
Yep. So anyway, now remember that soldiers are trailing them, the rangers are trailing them. It's getting to be fall, so they decided that they're going to go up into the mountains. So what they did, we killed some game and caught some mustangs, and we headed up to the Pecos River and on to the Rocky Mountains. Here we would take it easy and we could lie down and sleep in peace. Game was plentiful, and of course it usually is. And the mountains became scarce once winter hit on. The mountains became game kind of became scarce, and our horses had no grazing. So we cut holes in the youngest horses' ears and started them down the mountains to live. So remember, the valleys usually stay green. We kept all the old skinned up mules to feed upon ourselves. So you got meat on the new phrase, meat on the hoof, right?
Yep.
The first one we killed was an old skinny gray mule. His back was one solid sore, and he being rubbed by an Indian saddle. We ate him and sucked his hide and bones to get all the nutrients out. The sores were the first parts we ate, and they were sweet and tender. Go figure, right? The sores are the sweet and tender parts. Don't know why. So then it began to snow, and the mountains were cold, and we went without fire and food or shelter. To go down on the sleet of those steep hills we'd get killed, so we didn't go. We just stayed there and suffered. It was hazardous, and we were starving. We killed and ate all the mules. We kept and sucked and fought over the hides and the bones like hungry dogs. We gnawed and chewed at our old moccasins. They were eating their shoes. They were so hungry. Our condition was terrible. Well, anyway, we had not even tender-hearted soldier nor a revengeful ranger who came to contend, but freezing and starvation were more horrible. They escaped the soldiers, but they were killing themselves in the cold and starving of food, and they realized, well, it was better to fight the soldiers. They came down out of the mountains eventually, and they reached the valley where they found many of our horses, which had been sent down there had found pretty good pickings and were in good condition. We managed to kill some game and fared some better. After spending some time in that region, we turned back to our old hunting grounds. We had undergone so many hardships that most of the tribe had sickened of freedom, and we wanted to go back to the reservation. Council was held, and they said, "We're going to give up. We're going back." So they went back to the reservation, and because we came in on our own accord, the soldiers rewarded us. So there you go. They said, "We're going to put you wherever you want because you're coming in on your own." Gave us liberties the other tribes were not able to get, which is kind of funny because they left the reservation in the first place. So I'm going to stop right there because the next chapter, his chief, Carnivus, gets killed. And that will be for next week because we just love reading out that book. And you know, it's quite the adventure that story is. I mean, you know, I'm learning a lot. You know, these guys were tough. They were strong. They were tough. I don't know if I showed this picture. Yeah, this was the Roberts guy. When he was young. Anyway, yeah, Roberts. And, you know, I don't know, but it must have been a thing to wear a beard. You know, they all got beards. They either didn't have razors or they just liked wearing a beard. You notice that?
Yep.
Except here, they got big mustaches. Nope, that's a rattlesnake. Mustaches, beards. But then, you notice in the 30s here, you know, probably 20s and 30s, all of a sudden, they're normal men, and they just got some mustaches, clean shaven. Here's one guy still got a beard. He's old school. Nose here, shaved. Everybody's shaved now. Like, okay. You know, here, got a mustache. Beards were in, people. Beards and mustaches. And look at, he's got that big old handlebar mustache going on.
Well, here's the thing. If you notice, the folks that you saw in those last few pictures were sort of well-to-do.
Yeah.
And they could afford going to the barbershop.
Oh, yeah. I never thought
Whereas the common man that you didn't show pictures of just on the street didn't have the luxury a lot of times of having a straight razor, you know? So just want to point that out, you know.
See, that's what I need some old wisdom for. You know, I guess that's why I'm unshaven. I can afford that straight razor. Although I never used a straight razor yet. But anyway, I use the $2 Gillette razors. You know.
And I still have a double-edged razor, the kind that you unscrew and put the blade in. I've got one of those.
Nice.
And you can buy a bunch of blades for $1 at the dollar store. I mean, it's like, and I get a good shave when I shave. And I'm thinking about getting rid of this. So
there you go. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, okay. Well, Christmas got to go. Okay, thank you for joining us tonight. It was a good one. You'll have to listen to David tell the story here in a little bit. You always tune back in, you know, a replay. Anyway, Story time next. We got a good one for you, don't we?
Yeah, but you know, it's in some stories are just okay, and other ones are like, well, that's groovy. You know, this one kind of falls in the groovy sector. You know, it's like, wow, that's just interesting. You know, let's see.
Yeah.
Are we headed that way?
Oh, yes, we are.
Oh, I guess that's a yes. Okay, I got to kind of switch screens here. Okay.
Don't you worry, I got.
Now I'm still reading. Okay, I'm on a different screen. I can't see yours. So the intro to this is I'm This is story number 3 in the new book that I've started reading from, and it's called Glooskap's Country and Other Indian Tales by Macmillan, Cyrus Macmillan, 1922. And this story is chapter number 3, and it's how Glooskap made the birds. Once upon a time. Oh, wait, I lost my pet. Hang on. Dadgummit. Okay, I'm back. I lost the page that quick. Okay, cued over. How Glooskap made the birds. Once upon a time, long before the white man came to Canada, there lived a wicked giant who caused great trouble and sorrow wherever he went. Men called him Wolfwind. Where he was born, no man knows, but his home was in the cave of the winds, far in the north country, in the night land. And there men knew he was hiding on calm days when the sun was hot and the sea was still, but on quiet nights when not a leaf or a flower or a blade of grass was stirring. But whenever he appeared, the great trees cracked in fear, and the little trees trembled, and the flowers bent their heads close to the earth, trying to hide from his presence. Often he came upon them without warning, and with little sign of his coming. And then the corn fell flat, never to rise again, and tall trees crashed in the forest, and the flowers dropped dead because of their terror, and often the great waters grew white and moaned, or screamed loudly, or dashed themselves against the rocks, trying to escape from Wolfwind. And in the darkness of the night, when Wolfwind howled, there was a great fear upon all the earth. It happened once in those old times that Wolfwind was in a great rage, and he went forth to kill and to devour all who dared to come in his path. It chanced in that time that many Indian families were living near the sea. The men and women were fishing far off the coast. They were catching fish to make food for the winter. They went very far away in small canoes, for the sea had long been still, and they thought there was no danger. The little children were alone on the shore. Suddenly, as the sun went down, without a sign of his coming, out of the north came Wolfwind in his great rage, looking for prey, and roaring loudly as he came. "I am Wolfwind, the giant," he howled. "Cross not my path, for I will kill all the people I meet and eat them all up." His anger only grew as he stalked along, and he splashed and tossed the waters aside in his fury as he came down upon the fishermen and the fisherwomen far out to sea. The fishers had no time to get out of his reach or to paddle to the shore. So quick was Wolfwind's coming, and the giant caught them in his path and broke up their boats and killed them all. All night long he raged over the ocean and looking for more fishers. In the morning, Wolfwind's anger was not yet spent. Far away in front of him, he saw the little children of the fishers playing on the shore. He knew that they were alone, for he had killed their fathers and mothers. He resolved to catch them and kill them too. And after them he went, still in a great rage. He went quickly towards the land, roaring as he went and dashing the waters against the rocks in his madness. As he came near the beach, he howled in his anger, "I will catch you and kill you all and eat you and bleach your bones upon the sand." But the children heard him, and they ran away as fast as they could. And they hid in a cave among the great rocks, and placed a big stone at the mouth of the cave. And Wolfwind could not get in. He howled loudly at the door all day and all night long, but the stone was strong, and he could not break it down. Then he went his way, still very angry and still roaring, and he howled, "I will come back and catch you yet. You cannot escape from me." The children were very frightened, and they stayed long in the cave after Wolfwind had gone, for far away they could still hear him howling and crashing in the forest. Then they came out. They knew that Wolfwind had killed their fathers and mothers on the sea. They ran away into the forest, for they thought that there they would be safe. They went to the Willow land, where they found a pleasant place with grass and flowers and streams. And between them and the north country, where Wolfwind lived, were many great trees with thick leaves, which they knew would protect them from the giant. But one day Wolfwind, true to his promise, came again in a rage to find them. He came into the land, killing all he met in his path, but he could not catch the children, for the trees with their thick leaves kept him away. They heard him howling in the forest and far distant. For many days in the late summer, he tried to find them, but their home was close to the trees, and the great branches spread over them, and the thick leaves saved them. And only the sun from the south, coming from the summer flower country, could look in upon them. Try as he could with all his might, old Wolfwind could not harm them, although he knew that they were there. And they were always safe while they lived in the Willow land. Wolfwind was more angry than ever because of his failure, for he liked to feed on little children, and his rage knew no bounds. He swore that he would have vengeance on the trees. So he came back again, and he brought with him to aid him another giant from the north country who had with him a strange and powerful charm, the charm of the frost. And the two giants tried to kill the trees that had saved the little children. But over many of the trees they had no power. For when they came, the trees only laughed and merely swayed and creaked and said, "You cannot harm us. We are strong, for we came at first from the night land in the far north country, and over us the charm of the frost has no power." These were the spruce and the fir, the hemlock and the pine and the cedar. But the other trees, Wolf Wind had vengeance as he had vowed. One night, when the harvest moon was shining in the sky, he came without warning, and with the help of the giant bearing the charm of the frost, he killed all the leaves that had kept him from the children and threw them to the ground. One after one, the leaves came off from the beech and the birch, the oak and the maple, the alder and the willow. Some fell quickly, some fluttered slowly down, and some took a long time in dying. But at last the trees stood bare and cold against the sky, and there was stillness and sadness in the forest. And Wolfwind laughed and played in silence through the leafless branches with the giant from the night land. And he said, "Now I have overcome the leaves that kept me away. And now, when I please, I can kill the children." But the children only moved closer to the strong and sturdy trees that had come at first from the far north country, and over which the charm of the frost had no power, and Wolfwind could not reach them, and they were still forever safe from the giants. The children were very sad when they saw what Wolfwind had done to their friends and protectors, the trees. Summer had gone back to the Southland, following, as she always did, the rainbow road to her home in the wilderness of flowers. It was lonely now in the forest and silent. There was not a whisper in the trees. There were no leaves, for it was autumn and Wolfwind had killed them all. At last it came to that time of year when Glooskap, who ruled upon the earth and was very great in those days, gave his yearly gifts to little children. And he came into the land on a sled, drawn by his faithful dogs, to find out for himself what the children wished for. And the children all came to him, each asking for a boon. Now Glooskap had great power upon the earth in that old time. He could always do what he willed, and the little children, whom Wolfwind had tried to harm in his rage, came to Glooskap, the magic master of gifts, and they were all very sad because the leaves had gone. "What do you wish?" said Glooskap. "We wish nothing for ourselves," said the children, "but we ask that the leaves that were killed by Wolfwind, because they saved us from his rage, be brought back to life and put back again in their old home in the trees." Glooskap was silent for a long time, and he sat and thought, as was his custom, and he smoked hard at his mighty pipe, for he was a great smoker. Now in that time there were no little forest birds upon the earth, for Glooskap had not yet brought them into being. There were only the birds that dwelt near the sea, and over whom Wolfwind had no power: seagull and crane, wild duck and loon, kingfisher and brant, and curlew. These only laughed at the giant in his rage, and screamed in mockery as they flew from him, and hid when he came among the shallows or the rocks or the thick grass in the marshes. And there were also the sturdy birds that dwelt with men and worked for them, giving them eggs and food. These were hen and goose and duck and wild turkey. They gave men food, but they were not fair to look upon. They waddled along and could not fly very well, and they made no sweet music upon the earth, for their song was a quack and a cackle. Glooskap decided to bring other birds into the world, not to give food, but to bring happiness to the children on the days when summer dwells in the land with their pretty feathers and their pleasant songs. So after he had smoked long in silence, he hit upon a plan. And he said to the children, asking for their yearly gifts, "I cannot bring back to the trees the leaves that Wolfwind has killed and stripped off, for it is now too late. But I will take the fallen leaves and change them into little birds. And all the birds shall never forget how they were born. When autumn leaves come, they shall go with summer far away to the summer flower land. But in the springtime, they shall always come back, and they shall live as close as they can to the leaves from which they have sprung, and they shall nest, most of them in the trees, under the leaves. And even those that nest in the grass shall love the trees and linger in them. Then they shall all be beautiful in color, like the leaves that gave them birth, and they shall have power to rest at all times upon the air, like a leaf fluttering. And the voice of the air and the laughing waters shall be in their throats, and they shall sing sweet songs for little children. And I give the children charge over them to keep them from harm, just as the leaves which gave them birth have saved the little children from the giants. And I will give the trees that Wolfwind has stripped power to bring forth new leaves every springtime, so that when summer does come back from the wilderness of flowers, the trees shall not be bare. And although Wolfwind may strip them off when the giant of the frost comes with him from the night land, they shall always be replaced in the springtime. And I will take away much of Wolfwind's power, so that he can no longer harm little children as wickedly as he has done before." Glooskap waved his magic wand, as was his custom, and at once great flocks of little birds sprang from the ground where the fallen leaves had lain. And they twittered and sang in a great chorus and flew back to the trees. They were of beautiful colors, like the leaves that had given them birth. There were robin redbreasts and thrushes, all brown and red from the red and brown leaves of the oak. And there were finches and hummingbirds, all yellow and green and brown from the leaves of the alder and the willow. And they glowed like willows in the sunlight and fluttered like a leaf upon the air. There were yellow birds and Canadian warblers from the golden beech and birch leaves. And there were scarlet tanagers and orioles and grosbeaks, all of changing colors, red and purple and brown, from the leaves of the Canadian maple. And they all sang to the children. And the children were all very happy again. Then Glooskap sent the little birds all away to a warm country until the rule of the giant of the frost from the nightlight land was over. For it was winter in all the land, and it was very cold. But in the springtime, the little birds always come back from the summer flower land, and they build their nest among the trees as close as they can to their kindred, the leaves from which they came. And all day long they sing among the leaves for little children. At daybreak they wake the children with their choir of dawn, and at twilight they lisp and twitter to lull the children to sleep. And at night they hide among the leaves from wolf wind, and are very still, with never a twitter or a song, for they do not forget that they are the children's gift from Glooskap, and that they came from the leaves stripped from the trees by Wolfwind, because the leaves saved the little children from the giant long ago. The end.
Good one. I like that one. It's kind of like how the fall comes and it's gonna make it all winter, and Glooskap says, "Wait a minute, you can't be doing that. You gotta."
Well, and
things.
Here's something that, is I read this story earlier and then I read it again now. So as I'm reading it this time, I'm like, the children didn't ask for Glooskap to harm the Wolfwind. They didn't ask for revenge. They didn't, you know what I mean? So all they asked for was like, can you bring the leaves back? And so, which is interesting in that, well, what did you get out of this? The little children just wanted the leaves back, and they got birds to go with it. And I think part of the story is, if I was to, tell a bunch of little kids, I was like, they could have asked Glooskap for anything. They could have asked him to kill the giants. They could have asked, but they didn't. They asked for the leaves to come back on the trees and help the trees because the trees saved them. Just like, well, wait a minute. If anybody deserved a little bit of retribution, it would have been little children against glue, So, but, so I don't know. Is there a moral to that story?
So, we got to take it for what it is. You know what I mean? So, I think a lot of people don't look at it like that. That's the thing. Those stories are kind of confusing, but you really you like you said, you read it earlier and then you read it again, and it's
I know, but I mean, to that, I was kind of sort of.
Well, because the children, like Scotty Boy says, children are innocent, and here's the wolf wind, and he, hey, Glooskap says you can't be doing that. Wait a minute, somebody had to step in and say there's got to be balance. I guess that's what it is. You got to have balance.
Yeah,
the spring, the summer, the fall, the birds come, the birds go. You know what I mean? There's got to be a balance.
Yeah, and Glooskap had not, hadn't made the songbirds yet, and whether or not he forgot about them or whatever, but he sat down with his pipe and he thought about it, and he goes, here's a crappy situation. Here's all these dead leaves. Here's the children over here kind of moaning and crying, and there's what can I do out of this? Oh, I got an idea. We need songbirds.
Yeah.
Like what? Yeah, songbirds. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like a lot of other things, like revenge, or how can I get back at Wolfwind, or how can we, stop the other giant, or how, nope. How can we get the leaves back?
Mm-hmm.
I really like the story.
Yeah, it was a good one.
And not only that, but that story's over 100 years old. 1922, it was written down. So you want to look, and I want to say, how stupid were native people? How stupid were those savages? They, their stories had no meaning. There was no philosophy in the story. You know what I mean? And then here's this story that's really simple, but it's got a bunch of stuff in it. And I could see where grandfather's sitting around the fire and he's being able to use this story as a teaching method. You know what I mean?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
You can't do that with Hansel and Gretel.
No. But that's the thing.
How to stuff a witch in an oven.
Well, and that's the thing. We have a lot of stories from things like that, Hansel and Gretel, and they all mean something too. It's just anyway, it is what it is. Stories are stories, and they're there for a reason. They wouldn't get passed down for hundreds of years just because they're just some story people like to listen to. There's a meaning, a hidden meaning behind it. And that's why people are still telling the story, because they're trying to figure out these meanings. So it means something different to everybody.
Right. And that's sort of what I was meaning by what I just said. In that, here is this story, that could have, it could have been a lot of violence towards the giants, and they all got together to kill him, but they didn't. So the story, was about how they could, work around the giants, and not kill them, but work around them. And so that to me is like, wow, what a place to use it as an example, as a teaching method. That's,
Yep. Well, you got some good cards for us tonight?
I don't know. They're all up. Well, all but one's upside down. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, But So we got a 40. Oh, that's a 14. Oh, never mind. We got a lynx upside down.
Okay.
We got a badger, which is right side up. Means something about medicine. Bat upside down. Dog upside down. And dolphin upside down. Now we've had lynx not too long ago. We, I guess we've had all of these. We've had badger not too long ago, I guess. But anyway, hell, it's been 2 weeks since I pulled cards. So let me get the book out and let's see what's going on. I know badger's about medicine.
That's right.
But so first one up is lynx. Lynx's secrets. It said if you want to find out a secret, ask lynx medicine. And unfortunately, it's difficult to get the silent lynx to speak. Lynx is the keeper of the secrets of lost magical systems and of occult knowledge. Lynx has the ability to move through time and space and to go into the great silence for unraveling any mystery. Lynx is not the guardian of secrets, but the knower of secrets. Lynx medicine is a very specific type of clairvoyance. So you got to be a mind reader to understand it. But because Lynx medicine, you can be sure that the secrets are afloat. Now, with the card upside down, it says, it is time to shut your big mouth. Well, something you are jabbering about has let the cat out of the bag. How about that? Are you defiling a sacred trust, or have you broken a promise to a friend? If not, you may have pulled a good boner on yourself by blabbering your latest ideas to a friend who steals them from you. You might look at choosing to have your brain in gear before your babbling starts, or your foot may have to replace your tongue. In other words, watch what you talk about. Make sure that you know what you're talking about. The next one is badger, number 29. Number 29 is aggressiveness. So Lynx is coming out and saying, hey, quit trying to blabber and you better be aggressive about it. You better really keep your mouth shut. Badger is vicious and attacks with powerful aggression. The very thought of facing badger makes other animals run for cover. Badger is the medicine of many powerful medicine women. For badger is also the keeper of the medicine roots. Badger sees all the roots of Mother Earth's healing, hanging in its home under the ground. These roots are a key to aggressive healing. Now there's aggression, there's links with the secret, and you're babbling, but now here's medicine in an aggressive fashion. If badger is a part of your medicine, you are quick to express your feelings, and you do not care what the consequences are. Well, I think Lynx might be telling you to be careful. This attitude, however, does not endear them to their friends around them. Be aggressive, but don't cut others to ribbons in your anger. If you're angry, stop lolling around so that your doldrums of apathy are a thing of the past. Badger may be signaling a time when you can use your healing abilities to push ahead in life. Heal yourself by aggressively removing the barriers that don't grow corn around you. The next card, now that's Badger right side up. So, quit hanging around and make sure that you do your best to stay healthy and to get healthy. So next one is Bat. Oops. And there's a dolphin. The next three cards are upside down. Oh, I went right by it again. I can't count. Bat is rebirth. Steep in the mystery of Mesoamerican tribal ritual is the legend of the bat. Akin to the ancient Buddhist belief in reincarnation, bat is a symbol of rebirth. Bat has for centuries been a treasured medicine of the Aztec, the Toltec, the Tolucan, and also the Mayan peoples. Bat embraces the idea of a shamanistic death, a pretend death, if you will. The ritual death of the healer is steeped in secrets and highly involved initiation rites. The ritual is very similar to the Night of Fear practiced by the natives of Turtle Island. Darkness and the sounds of animals prowling can quickly confront the initiate with his or her fears. Bat upside down is like hanging in a cave. You have met its contrary medicine. This position leads to stagnation of the spirit and a refusal to acknowledge your true destiny. So if you're bat hanging upside down, you need to be aggressive and get the heck out of that mode, and get your medicine going like Badger just said. Bat can also imply that in the reversal of your natural cycle of rebirth, you are trying to go at life in a backwards motion. Think about this. This is a breech birth in a sense. Now that's interesting because we're into a new year. We're into the new golden era. We're into a new mindset. We're into you know what I mean? So there are folks that might be trying to enter this new, it's at least a new year. And it's the Chinese New Year as well, too. So at least it's the new year. So let's not go into the new year backwards. Not a bad thought. So the final outcome can be the death of the body as far as the rebirth is considered in this instance. Reverse bat says to use your mind, courage, and strength to ensure an easy and quick delivery into your new life form. So that's good medicine. Dog is the next one in, and dog is loyalty. It's number 14. So bat, that's an interesting. And Badger's got the medicine going with it with the aggressiveness, and Lynx has got that secret going, and But anyway, so number 14. Yep, number 14. Dog is loyalty. Dog has been considered the servant of humanity throughout history. If a person carries dog medicine, he or she is usually serving others or humanity in some fashion or way. Dog was the servant soldier that guarded the tribe's lodges from surprise attack. If dog is yelled or paddled, it still returns love to the person who did the paddling. Now, the dog's upside down in this instance. Dog may be telling you that you have become critical or mean due to the company you may be keeping. The reversal of this medicine could also imply that it is time to stop cowering with fear. Now, I would go with that because there have been a lot of us, and now that there's a new president and so forth, there are folks who feel like they can speak out again and not be criticized for being a MAGA person, for example. So along with the bat who says, don't go into the, to the future backwards. And here's dog trying to say that you may be cowering. We may be cowering in fear. And I would say that that's true. So, stop cowering. Now, the last card is Dolphin, and it has to do with mana. Well, Dolphin. Dolphin is mana. Dolphin speaks to us of the breath of life. The only things that humans cannot go without for more than a few minutes. We can live without water and food for days, but oxygen is the source of our sustenance. That is without a doubt. If Dolphin has appeared reversed, know that you are forgetting to breathe. I was thinking about that earlier yesterday. There's so much going on so quickly, this happening, that happening, this person getting that person, firings, hirings, just all the stuff that's going on. I was like, are people, because I was, wanted to do a video about this, are people actually finding time to be able to sit down, take a breath, and meditate at least for 5 minutes, because there's so much stuff going on. But anyway, so here's Dolphin, kind of interesting that, it may be that you are forgetting to breathe. You may be under stress, and your body may need mana. That's the sustenance of life. You may be starving your cells and organs no matter how many vitamins you're taking. Your natural cycles may be fouling up. Pay close attention to your health. Well, guess who was in the picture? Badger. Medicine. Medicine. Pay close attention to your health and your feelings. If you are on edge or tense, take time to relax and breathe the life force into your muscles and into your being. Focus on releasing the old breath at the bottom of your lungs and refilling your respiratory system with regenerative mana. There's all kinds of energy just in the air that we breathe. Another message of the contrary Dolphin is that many signals are carried through the universal tides or waves, and you may be failing to use your own sonar. To detect these wave patterns, you may need to realign yourself with natural rhythms within your body. Then it is necessary to use the dolphin breath to connect to universal awareness and the signals. Dolphin says to dive deeply into the water, to play by the coral reefs and discover the beauty of the rhythms of breath and reinvigorate the body to the rhythms of the earth. How about that one? So that's all good news. It's a lot of not necessarily beware, but yeah, kind of, sort of. Don't back yourself into the future. I think that's a great one right there. And aggressive healing with badger is never a bad thing. And the loyalty with dog, make sure that you haven't lost that. Where am I? Oh, okay.
Those were good cards. Good cards. Like I said, those certain ones are coming up, but we're living in weird times, and just like anything else, the message keeps getting repeated until we change something, right?
Yeah. But with badger, it's like, be aggressive. Don't just sit around and, but at the same time, badger says be aggressive. The next card was bat. Don't go backing into things, which means keep your eyes forward,
Yep.
Keep your eyes forward, and if there's too much stress, you got to breathe. You got to breathe. So the medicine from dolphin, this is all related, this is all related.
Breathe it in, breathe it out.
Yep.
Get the new energy in.
And get rid of the old. That's one of the things that's important, is to, as the card said, to reach down into the bottom of your lungs and get rid of the old stuff, And there was, I've talked about this on my show before, but, there's a type of breathing exercise. You breathe into the count of 4, which is hard to do. And you hold your breath for the count of 4, and then you let it out to the count of 6. And by the time you get to 4, you're pretty much out of breath. So you got to keep pushing, and you got to find out where that last little bit of breath is coming from for number 6. So, but that exercise, as simple as it is, will help you to get rid of that old breath that's in you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, breathing exercises are really good for you. Yeah.
And that's something that the Hindu priest and all them guys in the Himalayas, this is not something that's new. This is 5,000-6,000 year old kind of stuff to breathe,
Yep.
So, don't be an idiot. Learn how to breathe. I know that sounds stupid, but, people these days have never been taught how to, to breathe correctly. And therefore, they don't get enough mana from the dolphin like they should. And, therefore, they're kind of shy on things in the multiverse.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Well, good cards, good story. Hope you guys come next week. We'll be reviewing, more of the book. Oh, I got some cool books in lately. Man, oh man. I don't know. I'll probably do a show on it someday. Probably not on here, but as you can see, I got the James Younger Brothers book from 1882. James Younger Brothers. Story of Jesse James, Frank James, and the Younger Brothers. Ooh. And then one of my latest collection books. Oh, you're gonna love this one. It's the 1776 to 1876 Centennial book. Look at that. It just looks pretty. It has so much stuff in here. It's just crazy. They're talking about the fair and how they got a steam engine. It's so big it runs a hydraulic press and can do all these things. And I'm thinking, it's just kind of fascinating. Turning the pages and reading back those stories or what was going on. And it's amazing. 1770 or 1876 and how the world was getting modernized, and giant steam engine things could run all kinds of stuff. And I'm thinking in my head, like 1876, the Indians were still out there raiding horses and scalping people, and Custer was on the battlefield getting massacred,
Yeah, but at the same time, paddle boats were just becoming the big thing, and steam engines going across the Atlantic, So, but about that time, they were also starting to think about, believe it or not, they were starting to think about the Panama Canal.
Yep. Before we go, everybody, don't forget to join Nina on Hump Day Message. Don't not join her, because if you join her, like it says, she didn't have anybody show up last week because YouTube is shadow banning her. So get over there and join her tomorrow for Hump Day Message. Okay, back to what we were talking about.
So, but yeah, so much has happened, in that length of time. And to think what has happened just in my lifetime, the end of World War II and the start of the space race. And, I wish that I had a drone when I was growing up, but, and if I don't know whether or not I believe that report that them drones are all ours, but I'm just going to leave that at there. I still think something's fishy, but
well, if it wasn't ours,
conspiracy theorist. So there you go.
Well, and that's the thing. If it wasn't ours, they wouldn't. They'd be shooting them down. And they came out today and they said they're ours. They're doing whatever, and they're looking for something. And that's about where they left it. It's all probably classified. So there you go.
Here's one thing I want to say about that. The folks that is becoming their cabinet members and leaders of, the FBI and so forth. I don't believe these. I think these folks are really going to be transparent. They really want to tell the truth. They really want to get the American people's trust back. And the only way to get somebody's trust back is to be 110% honest and truthful, to the point of just being okay already, But there's already been so much truth that has come out that I know there are folks going, "What? You mean that was true?"
Yeah.
Yep. Guess what?
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
So there's going to be a whole lot more that comes out that I think that people just should hang on because they're going to release all kind of stuff that has been deemed top secret for a long time. They're going to take the top secret off of it and release it. And so people are going to go, "No, I don't believe that. No, I don't believe that. No, I don't believe that." So when the truth comes out, there are going to be people that ain't going to believe it, even though it's going to be the truth this time around. So y'all just make some popcorn, get your favorite beverage, and sit down, because it's going to be an interesting ride. And don't freak out. Wait till the dust settles. Wait till the dust settles, you know. But anyway, I love you all. Thank you. Stay warm. And I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many, many blessings from our Creator. Keep up the good work.
You got a show tonight?
Yeah, for a little bit, I think.
Okay, sounds good. And everybody, I will be back on Saturday night for a great show. And this time, no reruns. But hopefully, Lucky will join me and we'll have a great show talking about something, because there's plenty of news out there. Go over to Gilded. I just posted 2 new news sections that you all should catch up on. The link is here in the chat. So go over to Gilded. It's probably in my thing. If it ain't, I'll try to post it there too. But anyway, go over to Gilded. Get on there. Lots of good stuff. I'm always posting stuff. Nina's posting stuff. Don't forget Nina's show tomorrow, trying to outsmart YouTube shadow banning. How about that? Go over there and make your presence known. And the heck with YouTube. We'll show them. We'll show up. That's all it takes, right?
Yep.
So with that, everybody, be the frequency you want to receive. It's so important to everyone out there to just show who you really are. It spreads like wildfire. Trust me, it really does. And with that, peace, everybody. See you soon. Love you all.